Supreme Court has rejected the Republicans' attempt to get in front of the Supreme Court over Pennsylvania with no dissent at all for just at 5:23 this evening. That's exciting news, isn't it?
It's incredibly telling, I think, of what's to come. There's a little bit of foreshadowing there, which is exciting.
Yeah. Well, we could live with the Lieutenant Governor of Texas trying to sue every other state in America for how they voted.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ evening news. It is time to queer up the news. Good evening, LGBTQ world. It's 7 p.m. Tuesday, December 8th, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. The world's first live daily queer evening news show, Out of the Closet and Into the Headlines on Q News Tonight.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is live, unedited LGBTQ evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. This evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our world. I'm your Queer News Tonight anchor, Al Ferguson, and tonight let's welcome anchor Ryan Young. He is a Vice President of Programming and Community Relations and a board member for Flockfest, a strategic nonprofit fundraising foundation that partners with other nonprofits for transformational change. They plan, manage, and implement events that achieve fundraising goals and mission impact. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
And next, let's welcome up anchor Tony Lima. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Ariana Center, Trans-Latina, Florida, the only direct service and advocacy organization based here in South Florida, led by a trans-Latina openly living with HIV, with a mission to uplift and support transgender women of color in Florida, Puerto Rico, and beyond. He is a longtime South Florida LGBTQ activist, advocate, and political operative, as well as a seasoned communicator, marketer, and fundraiser. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Well, tonight we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of queer news for today, Tuesday, December 8th. We are doing breaking news that the Supreme Court has just ruled that Pennsylvania Republicans' attempt to block or stop the process of the Biden victory has been denied by the Supreme Court. And there has, in a one-sentence response at 5:23 this afternoon, no dissent at all. So the situation is, of course, unveiling, but it is a significant rejection, an overwhelming rejection to Donald Trump's claim for fraud. The Supreme Court is not going to hear Pennsylvania. So first up tonight at Queer News Tonight, we're going to queer up politics. Pioneering gay Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney elected to a powerful new role. Sean Patrick Maloney, one of only 7 LGBTQ people currently serving in the House of Representatives, was elected as chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee in a 119 to 107 vote of the party's congressional caucus this week, after a close battle with California's Tony Cardenas. The new role places Maloney at the heart of the body working to elect Democrats to Congress, giving him a significant role in the party's infrastructure. Maloney was New York's first ever openly gay congressman in 2013, and as co-chair of the Congressional LGBTQ Equality Caucus, he has been at the core of battles for equality in the chamber for years. In a statement, Maloney said, quote, "There is so much on the line for American families right now as we work to recover and rebuild from this pandemic. It will be essential that we have strong leaders in Congress who will fight for the health and success of every American," end quote. The ranks of out-House lawmakers will actually grow from 7 to 9 in January as fellow New Yorkers Richie Torres and Mondaire Jones were elected. The Human Rights Campaign president, Alphonso David, said, quote, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney's election as chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is an important milestone for LGBTQ people and another example of Democratic caucus leadership team that is reflecting the diversity of our country. Inez Parker of the LGBTQ Victory Fund said, quote, there is enormous power in congressional Democrats choosing an out gay man to serve as chair, especially after an election cycle where anti-LGBTQ attacks on candidates became the norm. Everyone at Queer News Tonight congratulates Congressman Maloney and the historic moment of queer representation leadership as chairman that will represent the future of Congress for decades to come.
That's amazing. It's definitely an amazing sign for the future of our country.
I think that's absolutely right. It's a little bit of foreshadowing of hopefully what we will be enjoying as an American humanity, if you will, over the next several years.
It is absolutely a exclamation point statement of Congress, of the Democratic caucus in Congress, to elect him. Slightly risky, perhaps, you might consider, of him representing the LGBTQ community. It is certainly a sign to come. And in combination with the possibility of the 2 seats in Georgia, definitely with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in the White House, and now the Supreme Court decision that we moments ago have reported, many, many changes on the horizon that is going to finally close this door of what we have seen in the last 4 years.
Queer Up Business. Apple CEO Tim Cook, one of the most powerful gay men in the world, makes simple but powerful show of trans solidarity. Although he did not announce the change, Tim Cook added he/him to his Twitter bio last week. GLAAD's Beginner's Guide to Being an Ally to Trans People says that introducing yourself as a cisgender person with your pronouns, which are words that are used to refer to someone without using their name, can make a more inclusive and safe environment for trans people to allow to also share their pronouns. Cook's fellow Apple executive, Greg Joswiak, has also recently added his pronouns to his Twitter bio. Apple CEO Tim Cook has previously shown public support for the trans community. Tim Cook, who came out as gay in 2014, has marked Trans Day of Visibility for the last 2 years on social media. In 2019, he wrote, quote, "The trans community at Apple makes us stronger and more vibrant." This year, in terrible 2020, he wrote, on this, quote, "On this Trans Day of Visibility, we're grateful to all who live their truths and bring their authentic selves to work. To trans and non-binary communities around the world, we see you, we support you, and we stand with you." Signed, Tim Cook.
This is really exciting. I mean, we're talking about foreshadowing, signs of things to come. When a major CEO of this nature is taking action to acknowledge our trans community, we're definitely making progress. So this is a very exciting thing.
And it's kind of a 1-2 punch, maybe a 1-2-3 punch in this broadcast of Queer News Tonight, because foreshadowing of what is to come, we report on the House decision-making of the election of people in Congress for 2022, and that move in LGBT. We report on Tim Cook at Apple, one of the most respected corporations in the world, and by the way, he's a billionaire, and power is in money in America. And now we report that Donald Trump's hopes that his appointments and all of our fears that we talked about in the Supreme Court, they have absolutely and unconditionally shut him down in terms of a rejection of his claim of fraud in the election. These are all really good signs today on December 8th of what is to come for the LGBTQ community and America as a whole. America as a whole.
Right. And I think when cisgender people use their pronouns, it also sends a message that it's not okay to misgender people.
Absolutely. Now it's time to queer up entertainment. RuPaul Drag Race alum interviewed Dolly Parton about wigs, work, and drag. RuPaul has long talked about the drag queen we've all come to know, whose name is actually Monster, is a combination of other stars. Though the numbers sometimes change, it's a few parts Diana Ross, Cher, David Bowie, and Dolly Parton. Those figures help to make the drag persona that has become a mainstay of culture, and now Ru is interviewing Parton in a new Marie Claire cover story. The pair met over 15 years ago and see what they do as similar in ways. They previously interviewed one another for Dazed magazine's 25th anniversary issue. As such, it was little surprise that for this new chat, they discussed their similarities and differences, namely over wearing wigs and heels. In a particularly interesting moment, RuPaul said to Dolly, quote, "People always ask me about how many wigs I have, and I name each of them different names. But my oldest wigs, I have wigs that I still wear that are about 23 years old. Do you have wigs that are that old?" Parton replied, quote, "I do, but most of them are more museum-type pieces, too. I don't think I have any that I wear that are that old now, but I know what you mean. See, you're a drag queen. Those are like costumes to you. This is my living self. I am a living drag queen. You dress up just now and then, but for me, though I like the wigs and I wear them almost every day, so people ask me how many wigs I have, and I say, well, I must have at least 365 because I wear one almost every day. But I actually keep my own hair the same color, and I just kind of pull it up in a little scrunchie around the house. But I still like to put on makeup and have my hair fluffed." In addition to Ru's questions, Parton answered a few inquiries from RuPaul's Drag Race alums Ginger Minj, Jujubee, Trinity the Tuck, Trixie Mattel, and Alaska. Superfans may remember that though Dolly hasn't appeared in person on the show, she did send in a video clip for season 12's finale. Of the questions, Minj asked whether the rumors that Parton wears long sleeves to cover up the fact that she has massive tattoos all over her body are true. She replied, quote, "The rumors are true, kind of. At Queer News Tonight, we think Dolly Parton is a living icon for the LGBTQ community."
I just want to know how Tony always gets the RuPaul stories.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Next, let's queer up gay culture. A new study shows lesbians are much more likely to divorce than gay men. New data from the United Kingdom suggests that same-sex female couples are much more likely to divorce the same-sex male couples than same-sex male couples. According to the Office of National Statistics, almost 3/4 of same-sex divorces in England and Wales in 2019 were between lesbian couples. While same-sex divorces account for less than 1% of divorces in England and Wales, the ONS did say that rates are increasing, reflecting, quote, "the increasing size of the same-sex married population since its legalization in 2014. This is the 4th consecutive year that female couples accounted for 3/4 of all same-sex divorces in the United Kingdom. This is particularly stark when lesbian same-sex marriage only accounts for 4 out of 10 LGBTQ marriages, making the divorce number all the more significant. 65% of lesbian divorces stated the most common reason cited for divorce was unreasonable behavior. Speaking with The Economist earlier this year, Lisa Power, one of the co-founders of the LGBTQ rights charity Stonewall, said that lesbians tend to move into a relationship and onto marriage more quickly than gay men, adding, quote, "We are used to move in with each other at the drop of a hat."
Queer Up Sports. New report reveals alleged horrors in sex testings in international sports. Medical interventions. The report is sure to hit a nerve in the United States, where legislatures from coast to coast have been weighing bills that would limit transgender student participation in girls' athletics.
Now it's time to queer up the Supreme Court. Supreme Court sidelines case against bathroom access for transgender students. The Supreme Court brushed aside a lawsuit this week aimed at barring transgender students from bathrooms and locker rooms that match their gender identity. The High Court has decided not to hear the case aimed at ending an Oregon school district's policy of allowing transgender students to use facilities that match their gender identity. The Supreme Court's rejection of the appeal is a win for civil rights groups that worried that the confirmation of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, which cemented a conservative majority on the bench, would threaten LGBTQ equality. Chase Strangio, Deputy Director for Transgender Justice with the ACLU's LGBTQ and HIV project said, quote, "The Supreme Court has once again said that transgender youth are not a threat to other students."
I think besides the obvious significant news in terms of trans rights in this decision not to hear the case, I think that the secondary story in this issue is our fears of the Supreme Court. There's a 6-3 conservative majority at the court. I think it's interesting that it required most of the participants in the 6 conservative majority to say we're not going to hear this case. And as we have worried so much in 2020 about the makeup of the court, this is a good sign of hopefully how the Supreme Court is going to balance their decision making in 21.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think it's also significant because it's talking about our young people. And when you consider that young trans youth are losing their lives on a daily basis because they feel bullied, they feel not included, this is a huge step forward for our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is our queer headlines for today. Next, we're going to bring you quarantine quickies in reporting the effect COVID-19 has had on the LGBTQ community in America and around the world. Here are today's cases and death totals specifically for the LGBTQ community in the United States and around the world. Next, let's queer up South Florida in reporting Flockfest. Ryan knows something about that, I'm sure. He's going to tell us about it. We talk about Flockfest presents Flamingo, F-L-A Mingo, Tats and Tacos, a benefit for Pride Fort Lauderdale. Q News Tonight is proud to support our local South Florida 501c3 nonprofit organizations and charities. And tonight we are pleased to feature a segment on Pride Fort Lauderdale. As the oldest Pride celebration in the state of Florida, it was born in 1977 from protests following a successful public referendum to overturn a landmark Miami-Dade County gay rights ordinance. Over the years, Pride South Florida, now known as Pride Fort Lauderdale, has taken many different forms from protests and parades to celebrations and beach festivals. And with us tonight, we are excited to welcome Kevin J. Clevenger. He's the former Director of Development for the Smart Ride and former Events and Fundraising Coordinator for the Poverello Center, as well as previous tour manager for the United States Air Force. And now he's the current new executive director of Pride Fort Lauderdale. Joining us tonight to talk about Pride Fort Lauderdale as well as their upcoming partnered event is executive director Kevin J. Clevenger. And we also have, of course, our guest anchor Ryan Young here representing Flockfest and their event Flamingo, Tats and Tacos, benefiting Pride Fort Lauderdale. So welcome, Kevin, to Q News Tonight. Brand new position. You're kind of an institution here in South Florida, and I didn't call you old. I said institution. It must be a very exciting time to take on this new position for Pride Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, it's been a great challenge. Back during the pandemic, our organization learned that we were definitely vulnerable to things like hurricanes and COVID, and so we've been working to put more events together throughout the year, so we won't be affected as harshly as we were this year.
Well, as our viewers already know, Q News Tonight and Happening Out Television was a partner with Pride Fort Lauderdale because they were presenting one of the big events in 2020 to the world. It was called Pride of the Americas, Pride of America. And it was bringing guests from all over the Western Hemisphere here to South Florida. And it has been postponed to 2021. And Kevin, tell us a little bit about the mission and what will take place for Pride of America.
So just last month, I was hired on November 1st. We had a 5-year strategic planning, and we wanted to update our mission to reflect something to help more of the community. I have a very good friend. His name is Justin, and he was talking about how he didn't have access to any type of scholarships, him being an adult. So we all came together and unanimously voted to bring on adult education scholarships, as well as a pilot GED program for people who don't finish and get their GED. The Pride of the Americas is going to be scheduled for November 2021 and 2021. It's a cute date to remember.
November 21, 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're hoping to have Q News tonight because you guys actually filmed the first ever parade that went down A1A,
Yeah.
what I like to call Gay 1A for that day.
Okay. Right. On the beach.
Yeah, on the beach. It was the first parade to ever go along, and we are definitely looking
Amazing.
forward to doing that again. We had so many entries. We had so many vendors. It will definitely be a 2-day event as well. The parade will be there, as well as the fashion show at the Hard Rock, the new Hard Rock.
Seminole Hard Rock.
Yes,
Right.
and we know we definitely want Q News tonight to be there.
Yeah, it was exciting. We broadcast the parade, first one ever on A1A, live, and we broadcast it to the nation. And I will never forget, I was sitting right next to the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, who is gay, Dean Trentellis, and the host from Q News Tonight are broadcasting the parade live. And Dean came in for about a 15 to 20 minute segment. I will never forget a mayor beaming so brightly of having a gay pride parade and coming down A1A at the beach. And the highlight moment, I'll pull Ryan into this conversation, was, and at the time I didn't know much about Flockfest, and at that moment in that parade I learned everything about Flockfest because like 200 people came down the street all in pink balloons like flamingos. Ryan, were you one of those guys that day in that parade?
I wasn't in the parade that day, but in the one in Wilton Manors I was. But
at
yeah,
Stonewall, we
it
did
was-
that broadcast too.
It was
was
truly
amazing.
unforgettable. I remember that moment.
Unforgettable. It brought us all to a shock. Literally, it pulled the oxygen out of our lungs. And Dean Trentellis, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, said, I've never seen anything like this in LGBT America. So Pride of America is just going to do the exact same thing on steroids because you're going to bring lots of Brazilians and all over South America and lots more Brazilians and then lots of other people from Central America and then lots more Brazilians. That's what's going to happen at Pride of America. Right, Kevin?
That is what's going to happen. And when we were actually scheduling our event, we planned this a couple years out, and Pride of the Americas is going to be one of those events that after we're done with it, it'll be like World Pride, and it can go to other cities throughout the world. But when Trump was elected, we've had a fear that people coming in from South America would have a problem getting in, and now with our newly elected Biden, we're really hoping to change everything and to really be more inclusive and have North America, South America, and everywhere in between join us.
Yeah. It's funny. This show is beginning to turn into these are positive signs moments. The whole theme of this show seems to be that. We're getting ready to close COVID. The vaccine started yesterday in Britain. 2021 is going to have a new president and a new philosophy on January 20th. Trump has lost in the Supreme Court on Pennsylvania. And we are going to have Pride of America in Fort Lauderdale in November 2021. Yeah. Things are going to improve next year. I want to ask, Ryan, tell us a little bit about this event that you're doing as a fundraising event for Flockfest, for Pride.
Right. So it's, obviously this year everybody had to cancel their events and people, have been trying to get smaller groups of people together just to do social things. And we had the opportunity to start hosting, weekly fundraisers at some local restaurants, one of them being Tats and Tacos on Wednesdays in Oakland Park. And the restaurants have agreed that we'll have a new charity come in every week and co-host. And then, bring their supporters, their friends. You get a table, you go in with your mask on. It's all very safe. Follow the rules. And then the charities will get 10% back. So it's a way of, you're not making obviously as much money as if you had done, the whole Pride parade and a whole Pride festival, but at least, it's enough to kind of keep some of us above water and, pay for our websites and storage units and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to South Florida, if you're not familiar with Flockfest, you really should pay attention. This is a 501c3 charity. It is a charity organization designed to entertain the LGBTQ community, do fun, entertaining activities, but to be charitable good for other organizations. It's a brilliant idea. And to friends in Tampa or New York or Washington or Orlando, you should really look into what Flockfest has done here in South Florida, because it's an excellent model for you no matter what LGBTQ community you are in. Kevin, before we close out, tell us a little bit about your mask program. We've promoted it here at Q News. Everybody needs a mask. Even with the vaccine, we're going to need the mask until maybe forever because of influenza and all kinds of other things that we've learned. Tell us about the mask program that you're doing at Pride Fort Lauderdale.
So the mask came up from something that, definitely the community was needing, and we wanted to have some fun with them. So we designed some of these great masks that represent not only our Pride community, but we also have an animal inspirations. We have rainbow paws, things like that. They're really comfortable masks to wear. They're very inexpensive. They're on sale for $5 and $6 on our website at pridefortlauderdale.org, which will take you to our sales portion, our e-commerce. They're really comfortable to wear. We have all kinds. I wear one to the gym every day, wash them, and they don't fade. So they're really great, and it's a way to express yourself.
Yes, please support Pride Fort Lauderdale, and that supports Pride of the Americas through this mask program. Kevin J. Clevenger, the new executive director at Pride Fort Lauderdale, that is putting on arguably one of the biggest events in the LGBTQ world in 2021, Pride of Americas, and I will forever now remember November 21, 2021. It does kind of ring. So congratulations, Kevin, on your appointment as new executive director. And 21 is going to be great for South Florida and the whole Western Hemisphere that gets to come to South Florida to celebrate when we finally put a closure of 2020 behind us.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here tonight. Well, next up, and we continue kind of in a theme. We report that Happening Out Television Network, of course, helps support our LGBTQ community. And another example of this is Sunshine Cathedral. This is the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale, and we are broadcasting from our permanent set in supporting that partnership. The network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, with more than 30,000 watching their Sunday service at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and it's totally live. We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
College and host of Gay Town Hall. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set in this amazing queer church campus possible.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when visiting South Florida.
Well, we want to welcome you now to week number 29 of Q's Q&A on LGBTQ health and the pandemic. This segment is unique in America in answering your LGBTQ community questions about your unique health needs. We are proud to have Queer News Tonight health anchor Dr. Howard Grossman.
He's an American pioneer in HIV/AIDS medical treatment and was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine.
He is a nationally recognized medical expert and a proud member of our LGBTQ community. Good evening, Dr. Grossman. And before we move to this week's viewer questions, what are your thoughts over this week's gigantic health news in various different ways for our community?
Hi, Al. Nice
Hey.
to be back.
Right.
Actually, just to go to an earlier conversation that you had about pronouns, I'd like to point out that for me, it's difficult sometimes to walk into a room and say, "Hi, my name is Howard and my pronouns are." And I think many people our age find that construction to be difficult. So I wear a button that has my pronouns. And so people know immediately when especially my transgender patients, when they come in, they know that I'm aware of it, that I think about it, and that I've open to hearing what theirs are. And that gets me around that problem. But you can buy these on Amazon, by the way, not to advertise for Amazon. No, it's been an exciting week. I mean, I think we have really good news about vaccines, and I know that there were some viewer questions about that, so we'll probably talk about that. And I think some of the news out of the Biden administration of where they are putting their money where their mouth is as far as healthcare, I think is also very exciting.
Howard, one of the questions that relates to vaccine is not asked tonight, and I just really quickly want to get your take on it. We started to see the breaking news yesterday that the Trump administration had the opportunity from Pfizer to purchase more doses and elected not to. What do you make of this story? It's evolving and it's a breaking story, but what do you make of it?
Well, you know, their whole focus has been on vaccines, so it's a mystery to me why they would have been so lax in this, except that this is this administration. I mean, they just haven't prepared. They really aren't prepared for, they're not prepared for the pushback they're going to receive on vaccine. I'm not sure that they have prepared adequately for distribution. I think there's a whole, there's a whole pipeline of things you need to do to go from having a vaccine to get into people's arms. And I'm really not sure that they have not prepared the ground. They haven't prepared the public. They haven't done the education that's necessary to talk about it. And in fact, you have Ron Johnson, the senator from Minnesota, I think, or Wisconsin, today holding hearings in the Senate where he had vaccine deniers and people who still think hydroxychloroquine is the cure, and all kinds of anti-scientific people, promoting conspiracy theories in the Senate. I mean, that's still going on today. So, the Great Britain bought 200 million doses with a far smaller population than we have, and we bought 100 million doses. And this vaccine is turning out to be incredibly effective. So people have been asking for data, and data was released today by the FDA. The Vaccine Advisory Committee meeting for the Pfizer vaccine is meeting on December 10th. The Advisory Committee meeting for the Moderna vaccine is on December 17th, and somebody asked me to make a statement of, what I see the impact on the LGBT community and what kind of work they need to do to help, bring LGBTQ people into the process. So, I'm planning to talk a lot about uninsured people and make sure that, people without insurance are able to get this vaccine. But so the data that came out today from the Pfizer vaccine is very exciting because after the first dose, they basically had a 90% decrease in the number of new coronavirus infections in the treatment group compared to the placebo group. In the first 10 days after the first dose, and after the second dose, you're up to 95%, protection. So, or decrease in infections. I shouldn't say protection, decrease in infections. That's pretty amazing. And I think there's a lot more, right. And it worked across all groups, age group, racial groups, sex, all kinds of different groups that they studied.
As you know, we're going to talk about the vaccine more specifically in one of our questions. And let's move into our questions now. Ryan, you have the first one.
Yeah. So we watched UK vaccinations begin today. Why do you think it is that America is so much slower?
Well, I mean, part of it is the UK has a National Health Service, and so they make decisions in a much more streamlined way. You know, our FDA is meeting. They're going to meet on Thursday, and so I think we'll see a rapid approval. Question of distribution. You know, we don't have a national program. We don't have a national health service. We don't have a national distribution system for these things. You know, they've got databases of everybody in the country. We don't have that. You know, I think there is some fear here of loss of privacy. So there's been some pushback on the administration wanted to take name, address, phone number, email of everybody who gets the vaccine. And of course, you know, people who are undocumented, of course, can be afraid to give out information to the federal government that certainly the Trump administration will use to, you know, go after people. And so I think there's some real pushback there, but, you know, that's going to be all that's going to complicate things.
Do you expect on Thursday when FDA has the review, do you expect that we could hear as early as Thursday evening or early Friday morning that they've approved the Pfizer vaccine? Do you expect it to move that quickly?
I'm not sure how fast this committee works. You know, the antiviral advisory committees that we're more used to in the HIV world tend to work pretty quickly. It's not always the same day, but I think this committee will feel under pressure. I would imagine we would hear something by the next day or Monday at the latest.
So your opinion is with the FDA's meeting on Thursday, it's imminent in terms of, it's hard to imagine they're going to reject it, but it would be imminent in their announcement.
Every doctor I know who's seen the data today is raving about it. You know, I've just seen posts all over the place of people I know whose opinions I respect, who are looking at the numbers in the data that was released, and very excited about it.
Okay, that's good to hear. And Tony, you have another question.
Yes, Dr. Grossman, you've talked about masks and mitigation many times. Is LGBTQ America following medical advice?
That's a tough question. You know, I think certainly we have seen pictures of parties in Miami and Atlanta and Puerto Vallarta where people are definitely not following it, and it's not just the LGBTQ community. Of course, it's it's people everywhere as this thing has been politicized, you know, I do think here in Wilton Manors, for example, I saw very few cases through the first 8 months of the epidemic. And I will say in the last month and a half, I've seen a huge uptick. So I do think that people have been less careful. I think there's a lot of fatigue in people being careful. A lot of people wear masks that don't fit tightly around their nose, and I always telling people just get a pipe cleaner and put it here, or something you can squeeze to make it, you know, fit tightly. People are wearing their masks under their nose, you know, or they're just not wearing them at all. And I think the numbers have, you know, I think, given that we have a governor here in Florida who is a scandal and now a national scandal in the last 2 days since the Sun Sentinel came out with, you know, reports about how they've covered up the numbers in Florida, people just don't see the threat. And unfortunately in the gay community, we're no different than anybody else.
Yeah, and so to make sure that I hear you clearly, you're not seeing a rejection greater in the LGBTQ community. You think it's the same as the broad society?
I do. Well, I think, you know, actually, I think when I talk to my young heterosexual trainer, I think it's worse in the young straight community in some ways. Mm-hmm. But then again, you know, the community here in Wilton Manors skews older, and I think, you know, older people are more worried about this in general.
Now, and you're not talking about me. You're talking about you, right?
I'm talking about me. Yes, of course. Of course, I'm talking about me. No, you're 25. 25? You're still 25?
Yeah, right back at you, dude. All right, our third question, our final question tonight, which I thought was super interesting. Biden already has early announcements from the Biden White House of health appointments that is going to have effects on, of course, the United States, whether it is the HHS nominee or the new director of the CDC. What will these appointments and the trending that we're seeing from the transition team for Biden, what's it going to mean for the LGBTQ community?
Well, I mean, first it means science is back in the driver's seat, which is a really good thing, and politics is going to take a back seat. But I think the picking the Attorney General of California, Attorney General Becerra, for HHS is a good move. I mean, he certainly has, on a legal side, stood up for LGBTQ rights. He's sued the Trump administration for more things than almost anybody else. And I think so he understands the politics, and I think he understands the health needs as well. And so I think he's going to be an excellent choice. And Rochelle Walensky, who's was appointed to run the CDC, she's amazing. I mean, I know her. She comes out of the HIV world. She's the head of infectious diseases at Mass General. Brilliant woman and very involved in the drive to decrease for fair pricing for drugs, for science over politics. Robert Redfield, I think, is a disaster at the CDC, and I think the morale at the CDC has been just horrible. People I know there have been keeping their heads down and afraid, and Dr. Walensky she's amazing. She's going to be fantastic, and so she knows the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, so both appointments pro-LGBT, but your soundbite that comes out of what you just said is that science comes back. Science is returned. Yeah, that's really, really great news. Well, that is tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ health and the pandemic. We are here every Tuesday with Dr. Howard Grossman to answer your questions. You need medical assistance? We encourage you to contact Midway Specialty Care Center with 10 locations here in Florida, and especially Dr. Howard Grossman here in Wilton Manors and throughout South Florida. Thank you again tonight, Howard, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Hal.
Well, we're going to end tonight's broadcast with the big finish, today's silly or news that entertains the LGBTQ community. First up, in the big finish, yes, a hot Colonel Sanders movie starring Mario Lopez is a real thing. On Lifetime, coming next week.
Oh, so he's playing Colonel
Sanders in the movie.
Like a sexy Colonel Sanders with big arms.
Yeah,
I like chicken.
How do you like?
I like chicken.
You like chicken, all right. How do you feel about Colonel Sanders, Tony?
I never had a thought on Colonel Sanders until now, but I assure you that I have many thoughts at the moment.
Yes. Okay. And Ryan, your thoughts? Is he sexy to you?
I think he's sexy personally. I definitely will watch it. I have no issue with sexy chicken.
Here's the problem. Who can watch even Mario Lopez and not think of the chicken bucket a constant all the way through it? Right. That picture and watching Mario Lopez going, no, I'm sorry, no. The big finish. This is true. You can't make this stuff up. Life-size taxidermied unicorn is going to be auctioned off in England. Look at this picture. It's a white horse that the taxidermist turned into a winged unicorn.
That's, yeah. I don't know.
My question is, for what purpose? Like, would someone actually put this in their home?
Who wants to bet a gay man is going to be bidding Fast and Furious on?
I want to bet that Al will make one of those. He wants this in his house really badly. You can tell.
And Ryan, you like chicken?
I like chicken.
How do you feel about unicorns?
I like the unicorn. I think it's cute. I actually have a picture of me riding a fake unicorn.
Oh, you should bring that in next time.
I will bring that in next time.
I'm going to ask you the next time you're at Queer News Tonight.
I will send it over.
In the big finish, have you heard all of Florida, all of us as Floridians are celebrating because Ivanka Trump is rumored to be eyeing the idea that she is going to run for the governor of Florida, even though she doesn't live here. What do you think?
I think we have a chance at turning Florida blue. I hope she runs.
I think we have to turn Florida blue. At this point especially, like this can't happen.
Yeah. Don't you think it's hilarious that if there's any validity to this rumor at all, first off, she can qualify as a Florida resident because of Mar-a-Lago in our backyard, 40 minutes from this studio is Mar-a-Lago, the Trump compound. Don't you think it's funny that one of the worst governors in Florida that has been the most embracing, supportive governors in America for Donald Trump, his daughter ultimately might stab him in the back by running against him in 22.
I'm not surprised.
It says everything about Trump, regardless of which DNA strand you have in your Trump body, I guess. All right, well, that's our last big finish for tonight.
That is today's news for the LGBT community on the world's first and only daily LGBT evening news show. In our community, is our community important to you?
Then help us by like and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news. We are the only television live video news that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of anchors Ryan Young and Tony Lima, we are going to see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, America.